All right, welcome everyone to the Soul of Healing Summit. This is Alicia Lynn here from alicialyndiaz.com, and I'm very excited to bring you a special guest today, Jeff Forte. Jeff is joining us today to share how you can heal yourself and how he healed himself from chronic Lyme disease. And as you know, I've really felt called to put this summit together to help you harness the power of your mind and spirit to create radical self-healing. And Jeff's story is truly miraculous, and it's a very radical shift that he got to experience from a condition that the doctor said he would never get to overcome. So I'm excited to bring Jeff to you today. And just so you have a little bit of his background, Jeff's an amazing coach. He's a transformational coach. He's a published author, and he's an executive and peak performance coach. And he's developed a unique system of self-healing that came from healing himself from this advanced chronic Lyme disease situation that all the medical experts that he saw couldn't resolve for him. So he's now using this system to help clients accelerate healing from whether it's chronic Lyme's or physical illness and injuries, as well as emotional trauma. So it's such an honor to have you here, Jeff. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Alicia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I'd love to start today just a little bit about your story and your background. And it's a kind of rare combination to have this executive kind of business coaching aspect merged with radical healing. So I'd love to just hear, how these paths wove together and why you're passionate about healing now.
Okay. Well, I want people to know that I didn't come gently or easily into this aspect of my life. I spent 24 years working for a number of Wall Street firms. And, but if I were to go back in time, I always had a curiosity about the power of mind. And even when I was in college, I did a lot of self-hypnosis. I was an athlete and was trying to enhance my sports performance at the time. So I had some unusual experiences with self-hypnosis, and that opened a door to me about the possibilities that might exist. And I have always been a possibility thinker. What's really possible with the power of your mind? What's really possible to create change or transformation in your life? And my story really begins when I am training athletes and martial artists. I'm in a mentorship program to train professional athletes on the side, athletically performance enhancing things. And I wake up one day while I'm in the best shape of my life, and I wake up and I have neurological challenges with my legs. I can barely move them. My brain is shrouded in a fog. And I know something is really badly wrong with me. And I try to get out of bed and the room is spinning. And I try to go outside of my bedroom and I am just about falling down. I have to hold on to the walls to walk. And that led to an ongoing battle to find a diagnosis. What was wrong with me? And for 8 long years, nobody could figure it out. And I saw some of the top people in the United States. I traveled all over, neurologists, neurotoxic specialists, alternative healthcare practitioners. And anyway, I got a little bit of relief through trying a variety of things, from Chinese herbal medicine to energy medicine to electronic devices, frequency devices. I tried everything and anything that anybody could imagine. And so at one point I was just totally fed up with wasting my money and my time because I wasn't where I wanted to be. To give you an idea of how bad it got, I was in and out of the emergency room. And there was one point where actually I thought I was going to die. The emergency room physician thought I was going to die. I literally had no pulse, none. And there were lots of things wrong with me, from heart to nervous system issues. I had tremors. And one of the most challenging things for me was my mind. I lost my mind. I couldn't remember much of anything. I would when I would go through these phases where I'd feel a little bit better, and then I would get set back. And as a former athlete, I'm kind of conditioned to push myself
Sure.
through. Well, anytime I pushed myself through, I would experience an incredibly harsh circumstance, from migraine headaches that were just monstrous to running an errand when I did feel well in a town I'd lived in for 18 years, and I could not find my way home. I could not remember how to get back to my home. That was emotionally devastating. Anyway, there was this moment I was fed up, and I decided I'm done with doctors. I'm done with alternative practitioners. I'm done with everything, and I'm going to take responsibility for myself and my own healing. And that was not only a defining moment for me, but that's when my healing began to accelerate, and relatively quickly as well. So I've always been curious and this possibilities thinker, and I recognized that there were these three dominant levels of thinking that people experience when they're ill, and if they're in some brutal disease, it can be really depleting thinking. And the first is hope, to hope that you get well, if you can get to hope. And then the second is to think or believe that it's possible for you to heal. And the third level is to know, to just absolutely know that you will heal. It may not happen this moment, it may not happen next month, but you will in fact heal. And I was able to get myself to that knowing place. And so for me, that's the only place. If you're going to, there's also three paths to healing in my experience. The first is to will yourself, your body, your entire being with this tenacity and resolve, and defy whatever diagnosis you might have. And then the second is love, right? Because I also had this belief, if I could just love myself enough, all my problems would go away. And the third is peace. And these things all overlap. Could I find enough inner peace to create this still point within me where everything would just balance out? Mm-hmm. So I used a combination of all three of those things. And as a, athletic mindset, will for me comes more naturally. And I had to teach myself about love and peace.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible journey. And for those of you listening, if you haven't been able to access hope yet, it's my sincere hope that listening to Jeff's story has reignited hope for you, because those were some really dire circumstances that you found yourself in, Jeff. And it's really incredible to see, where you are now with that.
Yeah, I also want to say this about hope. For me, hope is a depleting energy. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know that healing is possible, because if it was possible for me, it's possible for anybody. Mm-hmm. And to own the understanding that it's possible to heal, to just own that understanding that it's possible for you to heal. Is it possible for you to overcome cancer or MS or Parkinson's or chronic Lyme or fibromyalgia or whatever it is? Is it possible? And as long as you know it's possible, you can begin to own that knowingness. But if you're going to hope for someday you get better, it's not going to happen. In fact, I want to just talk for a second about the Stockdale paradox. I don't know if you're familiar with it, or the audience is going to be familiar with it. But there's an Admiral, James Stockdale, who was a Vietnam prisoner of war, and he was tortured the highest level American ever held prisoner. He was an admiral. He was tortured daily for 7 years, and people around him were dying. And when they asked him how he survived and what happened to his peers, he said the optimists died first. They thought they were going to be home by Thanksgiving, and then they thought they were going to be home by Christmas, and then their wife's birthday or their kid's birthday, or then the 4th of July. And when it didn't happen, they lost everything. And so for him, he had this resolve that he was going to confront the brutal truth of his circumstances, and no matter what it took, he was going to get beyond it. And I had a similar mindset about myself, despite my lack of memory and despite the tremors and the pain and suffering that I went through. I always believed I went beyond that belief into knowing I was going to heal. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to add is to have a compelling reason. Why do you want to heal your illness? What's your life going to be like if you get beyond wherever you're at? Mm-hmm. And I had this image in my mind that was incredibly compelling for me to, when I couldn't walk more than 50 feet without stopping, to be able to run with my son on the beach one day. I didn't have a time frame. I just said, one day I'm going to do it. And this, tenacious resolve inside of me. It was done. It's just details now. Mm-hmm. And anyway, when I was able to do that, the feelings of elation and the feelings of personal victory were some of the most profound feelings I've ever experienced in my life. And my calling, my message to do this work is to get you to understand that that is possible for you. It's absolutely possible for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's really jumping out at me right now is your confidence through which you speak, your sureness. And what I'm getting is that it's not just you sitting in confidence right now because you've seen yourself come full circle. It was this knowing, even in the midst of the uncertainty, that has actually been the thing that's allowed you to carry yourself to this place.
Yeah, so I have to tell you a little story as well, which is I didn't want to do this. I'm writing a book about healing right now, and I was told by friends who know me very well that, oh, you got to write a book. You've healed yourself from this chronic Lyme. It was such an amazing journey. You got to write a book, and I didn't want any part of that. Mm-hmm. I to review all the suffering I went through. I just didn't even want to revisit it. I had moved on beyond that in my life. And then I got bit by a tick this summer. Yeah. And I got Lyme disease again. And I went to the doctor. Usually if you get bit by a Lyme and by a tick and they catch it right away, within 72 hours-ish, sometimes a week, a dose of antibiotics and it's gone. You're good. So I got my dose of antibiotics and anyway, it wasn't working. And I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And I was angry. So anyway, I knew what to do, fortunately, so I was able to, completely reverse that in less than 30 days and be back to normal. And I was so upset at that. I said, people have to know what to do. People have to know how to take control of their own health. And that was a catalyst for me to really put myself out there and help people with their, with illness and disease.
Wow. You got bit again and got it again. And that was like the bite that caused you, that was the catalyst to you helping others with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was because I was so angry because I hear about people who suffer years and years of intravenous antibiotics and it's not working. And then a well-known physician in Florida just died from Lyme disease. Mm. And there's somebody I know who's been struggling for, 7 or 8 years and goes from doctor to doctor to doctor. However, right, there's this aspect, and the reason I mentioned this compelling vision, there's an aspect that I see and recognize in people with serious, difficult illnesses that what's the secondary benefit from it? Am I getting a lot of sympathy? Do I get to connect with my self-pity, right? Because I'm missing connection in my life. So it's easy for myself and feel pity for myself and all this sympathy from others. And I remember
attention and support and love and more community. Yeah,
absolutely. And I did not talk to anybody about my illness because I didn't want their sympathy. And my mom would try to call and see how I was doing because she knew I was going through a really tough time. And I would not want to talk to her at all. I didn't need the sympathy or the pity, because to me, that was going to put me into an emotional state that was not going to be productive for my healing. In fact, it might prolong it because I had to focus on my outcome, right? My outcome, run on the beach with my son. Do I want to dwell in my suffering? Absolutely not for a moment. So my daily goal was to reach for a better feeling. And hopefully, not are we just going to give the audience some information. I would like to give them an experience of some of the things that I've done for myself so that they can feel what it might be like a little bit later on.
Exactly. So this is exactly where I wanted to transition into. So you don't have to wait. We're all here right now. We're all here with you right now. So, my burning question is, you said you got bit by a tick again, and 30 days later, you were able to apply all those things that you had learned over those years and condense and collapse time for your healing. Gosh, tell us, please. Tell us what you did.
Well, I want to give people, I'm a big picture thinker, and I want to make life simple. So I want to give people a big picture understanding, and then I'm going to just do a couple things because I do so many things right now that I know we don't have time. So
Great.
The very first thing I did after I got my mind right is I had to clean up my diet, right? And I've tried a whole bunch of diets. I went to a 2-week raw food thing, and anyway, you've got to clean up your diet. Why? Because what you eat has a direct impact on your immune system. So that's really important. The second thing I had to do was to eliminate, to the best of my ability, as many electromagnetic fields as possible. So I highly recommend, if you don't have it today, you get yourself an earthing mat. And I sleep on earthing sheets. I have an earthing mat. And you can look up earthing, Google earthing, and you'll find all kinds of things on it. And that's incredibly important. And then you've got to move your lymph. So I have a rebounder, and I move my lymph, and that's very important as well. So detoxing is really important, and there are layers of detoxing. You've got chemicals and metals and herbicides and pesticides and radiation, et cetera, et cetera. So detoxing is also important if you're going to heal your body. So I had to do all of those things. And I did all those things along the way. And then you got to kill Lyme bugs. In my case, I have to kill these little spirochetes that are moving around and all the hundreds and hundreds of co-infections that come with them. And I tested off the charts with co-infections and Borrelia primarily. So all those things have to be resolved. So I want to step into the quantum world for a moment, because everything is connected with me. And I'm a student of quantum physics and the holographic universe and all these things that make total sense to me when it comes to how we look at ourselves. So we know that through research and science that water carries information and memory. And we know that we used to think that light speed was the fastest speed out there. Well, we know today that it is in fact not. And it takes light about 8 minutes to get to the earth from the sun. But water reflects changes in the sun instantaneously, simultaneously. And so I realized that my water was a valuable resource for me. In fact, that I could communicate with my water to change its programming, so to speak. And I began to wonder what messages, what information is actually in my water from people through my life, from the environment, from my own thoughts. So I had to take control of my thoughts, which is what I stated before, and then begin to reprogram my water. So right now, we're about 70% water, I guess. So right now, for anyone listening, because you're 70% water, your mind will give you a visual image of your water. It could be a stream, a river, a pond, a lake, an ocean. It doesn't matter. And by the way, if your mind doesn't give you an image of the water, you don't have that visual clarity, that's perfectly okay as well. I want you to just be aware of the feeling as we work in your water a little bit. So what image comes to mind for you about the water? If you say to yourself, show me my water, what appears?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, why not?
Are the audience asking themselves? The first thing I see is a waterfall.
That's great. So how's the clarity of the water?
It's bright.
Excellent. So I want people to understand that whatever is in the water, debris, bugs, somebody's image, it doesn't matter. It's just an impression of your unconscious mind, which is where a great deal of my coaching work exists. In this world, this is like another dimensional world where change here becomes change possible in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we should do is say hello to our water. So say to your water, hey, how's it going? And so when we talk to our water, the image of the waterfall might begin to change. And you can tell me if it does as we have a little dialogue with it.
Okay.
So I want you to say to your water, I want to thank you for being here for me, for working so hard for me. I appreciate you so much. Does anything change dynamically in your water? Just be curious about it. Be the observer. What do you notice? Did anything change? And the conversation can continue. So because I believe water has a consciousness, I want to communicate to my water in a way that's empowering.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I might say to my water, I love you. And one of the things that I did every day was to go through every organ in my body, every energy pathway in my body, and tell it I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Back to my thought about loving myself, all my problems would go away.
Mm-hmm.
So as you bring peace into your water, bring love into your water, bring forgiveness into your water, apologize to your water, whatever you intuitively feel needs to happen,
Mm-hmm.
your water will dynamically change. And I've used this with hundreds and hundreds of people. And I know that whatever appears in your water is perfectly acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give people an understanding of how bizarre it could be. I've had sea monsters in my water.
Mm-hmm.
I've had all kinds of bugs in my water. I've talked to people who have had people and objects in their water. There was a guy who came to me to heal his knee. He couldn't get any help. And there was a woman with his ex-girlfriend with a spiked ball inside of his knee. So I got rid of the girlfriend and the spiked ball, and his knee problems disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? It doesn't matter to me what it meant.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the meaning. All I cared about was getting rid of the thing that might not be there, shouldn't be there.
Right.
So whatever you see in your water is perfectly okay. It doesn't have any significance. It doesn't have any meaning. It's just an impression that exists that your unconscious mind threw in there that will give you a path to resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the path to resolution? The path to resolution is to honor your knowingness, mm-hmm. that part of you that just knows what's needed in the moment. Your own intuition will guide you to heal yourself. And water is a great way to do that, to begin the process of doing that.
Yes. Wow, powerful. Thank you for sharing the actual technique live here with us. One curiosity, you mentioned the quantum world. Can you share with us a little bit more, just so that I know that our minds always have curiosities. So for people who aren't familiar, I'm familiar with like Masaru Emoto's work on water and his studies. But if you could just kind of give us a synopsis for people who aren't familiar with the water reprogramming, this kind of technique and this kind of science.
Well, even today they're doing just astounding research on water. Water is one of the only substances that scientists have not been able to figure out. And it has so many aspects of it. They believe that it could be the hydrogen molecule. They're not quite sure yet. Water for me was just the beginning, mm-hmm. right? So in the quantum world, if we were to go inside of our cells and you take an electron, for example, that might be one of the most minute particles they found. There are other ones, but it's pretty darn tiny. Mm-hmm. But if you blow up an electron to the size of an orange, the closest electron to it would be about 200 yards away. Mm-hmm. And in between those electrons is space. So for me, that space is where all change occurs. For me, that space is divine, sacred. And I have been able to tap into that space to get wisdom, inspiration, healing. Mm-hmm. And so water is an entree, and there are other aspects as the process unfolds and evolves for me, I'm discovering so many more ways that are much more profound than anything I've ever done for myself in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's just the beginning. Mm-hmm. So we have to become possibility thinkers, and we exist in a world of limitations because we're just the way it is, mm-hmm. From the earth is flat to light speed is the fastest thing out there to the phone. Once we have a telephone with a line, we'll never have anything else, right? So for me, I believe that I'm just at the beginning of a true new shift of a new paradigm in healing, yeah. Self-healing.
Yeah.
And so I've healed myself from all kinds of things that I was supposed to have surgeries on and have not had to have those. So wow. Healing is possible. When you decide that it is for you, it begins to open the door that more is possible than you can imagine.
Yeah. Yes. So as you were sharing about, water and some of these steps that you took to be able to overcome Lyme specifically, but that are, really apply to all kinds of healing. So, the cleaning up your diet, eliminating electromagnetic fields and lymph and detox and all of that. You mentioned killing the Lyme spirochetes. Now, yes. Were you suggesting, because you mentioned the water right after that, were you suggesting that the water practice is the specific thing that you felt like got rid of the infections the most, or were there other techniques that you used specific to Lyme's that you want to share?
I certainly used antimicrobials. There's herbal antimicrobials that I use, and I've used quite a few of those. However, I also use, and this is the kind of fascinating thing that I discovered, I don't want to get bogged down in these little aspects of it because I want people to understand the big picture of what's possible.
Yeah.
I will say that I have found that I can make certain sounds that will eliminate certain elements of spirochetes.
Okay.
So in my last bout with Lyme, there were 3 distinct tones that wiped out 3 distinct aspects of, it's no different of the spirochete. It's no different than a frequency. We're all frequency, right? Mm-hmm. I have a vibration. The telephone has a vibration. A pen has, everything's got a different vibration. So in the world of offset, if I have a corresponding vibration that offsets the spirochete, that will work. So we can create our own offsets, but it has to start with offsetting the stress in your life. Mm-hmm. It has to begin with offsetting the clutter in your refrigerator mm-hmm. and cabinets. It has to begin with reprogramming how you think about yourself. I always ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I love myself fully, completely, unconditionally, where are you at? Where are you hanging out? And so my number one goal was to love myself at a 10. Mm-hmm. I'm not at a 10 today. Mm-hmm. I might be at a 9.7 or whatever. But the difference between that and 10 is huge. That's a lifelong thing, right? Mm-hmm. But to begin to love myself a little bit more every day, and the daily practice that I have of going through my organs in my body and acknowledging it, saying that I love you to my liver or my heart or my kidneys, whatever the case is, that it begins the pathway to healing, in my opinion and my experience. I'm no health expert. I'm no physician. I've done it for myself, and I've helped other people do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful.
That's really helpful. And what you said about the sound frequency is really interesting too, because how did you discover the sound frequency that resonated with offset what you needed it to offset? Like, what was that process like? Because this is interesting, and I want to kind of just debunk any of the myths for our audience, or you don't have to go into proving anything, right? Because we're not here for that. But I know that there's a part of us that want to try new things.
Sure.
And we want enough of our mind to just be satiated to be like, okay, yeah, I can get on board with that. I can try that, right? So it's going from, I mean, even someone like yourself, you know, working with these, where you say working on Wall Street, to doing like toning for your own healing. Like that's right. Like you were open to enough of the possibility that there were things outside of your mental capacity that are actually more intelligent than your own, you know, than our own limited beings. And so that's really what I want to share with all of you here on this call, is that, you know, there is science, and that's why we have quantum physicists on this summit to explain the science. But what Jeff's sharing is really, it's legit. And there was a part of him who didn't believe it too. So if you're in an inquiry around like, yeah, I don't know, like I get that he was able to overcome this stuff, but I don't get that how the water and the making sound and all of that like really does it. You know, just can you be open enough to consider the possibility that there's some wisdom in these practices here for you that transcend the limitations of the rational mind? And that's all we're asking here. And so, you know, really what I'm asking you now, Jeff, is not to prove with science or anything like that, but what was that opening for you? What was that turnaround that allowed you to be open to explore some of these very unique, you know, I would say unique, they're just different than mainstream. To us, to me as a healer, they're very normal parts of my modalities,
Yeah.
But just from your experience.
Well, the short answer is that when I was able to tap into silence, and I try to do this in my coaching work as well, I wipe my thoughts away and just honor the silence, because the right answer always surfaces. Mm-hmm. And sometimes astounding things happen as a result of that. And because I also meditate, things have come to me in meditation. So accessing the silence gives me the ability to tap into something beyond my own intellect, understanding. And that's absolutely true. So I call it divine inspiration. And certainly I have beliefs about God that are absolutely at the knowing level, not believing, but at the knowing level. Mm-hmm. And I have beliefs at the knowing level about the space and the water. And so am I placeboing myself? So it's all just placebo. I'm perfectly okay with that. Mm-hmm. All I care about is, does it work? Yeah. And because I come from this corporate mindset of, you know, result, all I want to know is this effective or not? Is what I'm doing benefiting me or not? And I want people to understand that the idea has to work immediately, dynamically, which is why I mentioned the water. Because if a change is dynamically happening in your water, mm-hmm. in my world, yeah. right, my own little opinion here, it's happening in my physical body as well. Yeah. And that is game-changing for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And clearly you've seen the profound effects for yourself and for hundreds sure. of other people as you've applied some of these techniques. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other last thoughts that you'd love to share with our viewers as we begin to wrap up here? Any other words of wisdom or offerings on the healing journey?
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is to slow down. To be aware of what's going on inside of you. This was something that I had to fight a little bit. But slow down, the silence exists more. When you slow down, your awareness of yourself, what's actually occurring. If I scan my body right now, what am I going to notice? Am I going to notice tingling, pressure, numbness, blankness? Am I not in touch with part of my body? Mm-hmm. So all of this slowness allows my awareness to expand. And that's why meditation is a great thing, because it allows your awareness to expand as well. Mm-hmm. So I would ask anyone in the audience listening to this to slow down a little bit and tune in internally and have a sense of curiosity and playfulness about exploring any of these things. Mm-hmm. The last thing you need is more seriousness in your life. Take yourself lighthearted. And again, you've got those three aspects of healing that you want to pursue, the will, that tenacity inside of you that says, enough, I've got this thing, I own this. And to find love, to love yourself at the level that offsets all negative emotions, and to find that place of inner peace deep inside of you where anything is possible. And listen, I want people to know this, that I know it's possible for you. I've seen it so many times. Whatever it is that's wrong with you, it is possible for you to improve in time frames that might boggle your mind, no matter how long you've suffered. Mm-hmm. If you can expand your awareness of what's possible, great things can happen. Yes. I'm here for you, and I would love to help you help join you on whatever healing journey you're on.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. It's such an honor to have you a part of the Soul of Healing Summit. I really want to encourage everyone to check out Jeff's website. It's peakresultscoaching.com, where you can learn about his consultations, his online health trainings, all of his up-to-date ways that he can support you will all be on his website at peakresultscoaching.com. So thank you, Jeff. Again, this has been Alicia Lynn Diaz and Jeff Forte with the Soul of Healing Summit. Lots of love to all of you. My pleasure.